CNBC-TV18 and NuSummit present the BFSI 2025 Vision Summit.
The AI advantage is really the big thing that the industry is talking about. But more than that, Gurbans, since before the start of the panel, you said you're not a fintech, you're a technology financial company, a tech fin. So let me ask you the buzzword of today. It's not AI. Now we've moved to generative AI. Everybody here, including me, thinks they're an expert because we've all opened ChatGPT to type in and to find some solution to some made-up problem. But tell us, to what extent has the BFSI industry really adopted generative AI beyond what we heard maybe in the earlier panels about chatbots?
So I made a promise I will not talk about chatbots because that's typically what we have seen generative AI. So the jazzy front ends and the conversational interfaces. But let me kind of step back to the grunt of hardcore engineering at the back end. And generative AI is also playing a role there. So if I look at customer service, so that's something that comes to mind with generative AI. But rather than talking at a conversational interface level, let me take you backside. But think about, you go to a shop, you're online, you swipe your card and your card get declined. You swipe it the second time, it's declined and it's frustrating. But there's something happening at the back end where the GenAI can help you. Because when you sit on a lot of data like we do in Fiserv, we have merchants data, we have issuers data, we have bankers with us. When you sit on a lot of data, we can analyze, where are the authorization codes, what is transacting and why it is failing. So what we have done is we have built applications at the back end, which is smart authorization, so that your decline codes, your declines will go less. For example, I subscribe to Netflix, I want to watch a movie, I go to watch a movie and it's not there because my card, the last date has passed through. I have not updated my card on Netflix and therefore it is not going through because my subscription expired. But if I was a smarter authorization, I would know this is a good customer. The issuer would know that the card has been mailed, the new card has been mailed and this transaction is declining only because the past due date was there. I can still kind of make sure that your transaction goes through. That's a smart authorization. So this is where GenAI is really helping at the back end. It's really, really helping there. The other is like, onboarding customers, onboarding merchants. So we had a lot of problems. Merchants used to not like us because we had very strict controls and they used to like other competitors like Stripe and Adyen. But we thought, again, why to look at a merchant only from a certain score that is given by a regulatory body? Why can't I go and look at all the other social things that are happening around the merchant? If the merchant is a restaurant, I can read the reviews also. Is it a good restaurant or not a good restaurant? Are there long queues there or not long queues there? And then also look at financial transactions and other things to take a decision. Should I onboard the merchant with risk controls not being so strict for that? So these are some of the areas where GenAI is really coming forward from the BFSI segment, but the grunt work of GenAI that is happening is not on the front end, but is the back end.
Well, Mayank, at rupyy, what is the extent of generative AI use you have? I know with AI you've built products like you have your DigiKhata, you have your DigiCode, but how is it really helping you in making the customer journey better, in solving for some of the bottlenecks? And is it limited to AI and not so much generative AI?
Thank you for that question, Ritu. rupyy by CarDekho is a used car financing platform. And I think the easy answer to that is AI is becoming more and more pervasive now. It's going more from experimental to actual production use cases. And I think we are focusing first on the consumer and improving consumer experience. Kaustubh talked about customer onboarding. So we already have AI live automating the customer onboarding stages and creating a self-serve type of experience. I think in the first panel, someone talked about that, hey, they're seeing more and more consumers prefer the no human self-serve experiences. And we see that with our consumers as well. So onboarding consumers and helping them automatically and very easily fill in their financing applications through AI, through intelligent automation is already live. And I think that's a very easy use case for most companies to adopt. And I think that is already being adopted. The real value, and this is how we try and innovate and we try and compete, is automating the internal operations away as well through AI and through typical software automation. And I think consumer experience is not just the front end that the consumer sees, it is also the back end operations that can be automated away to make tasks faster and responses much faster, and which is what consumers value. So typically in fintechs and financial companies, there are people who check a lot of data, who validate documents uploaded. There we are already seeing AI speeden up the whole process. Where there is still, we adopt a human in the loop approach, where AI is helping the person taking the decision to make it much faster and automate the repetitive steps away and just create a much better consumer experience. So that's where you're at.
Okay, Kapil, what's been your experience at Motilal Oswal with the use of AI? I mean, how are trading strategies evolving? What sort of changes have you seen? And what are the areas where you'd want to see changes that you're trying to implement AI solutions?
Yeah, thank you. So at Motilal Oswal, so fundamentally we are advisory firm. So our core business is to give advisory to our customers. So more in terms of helping our customers to generate alpha in terms of through brokerage. So one of the big area where we are implementing GenAI and AI is creating a platform for alpha generation. Alpha generation is defined as if we can generate better than benchmark in the market. So we are creating different products on alpha. That's what is our more of the to go live strategy with more on GenAI related use cases. So we have a lot of market data and we are building a lot of use cases on generating alpha for short-term prediction, generating alpha for mid-term, long-term, because we have customer base for all kind of profiles. So for example, we have a trader who trades on short-term. So we are coming up with a product which can generate alpha for short-term. Or we have a long-term investor who want to trade for a quarterly or yearly returns. So we are building products on quarterly, yearly. More implementing AI, GenAI on this area. And one big area where we are implementing generative AI is for our advisors to serve our customers. So that's where we are creating a system called Advisory Pro, where our advisors will have a tool which will have an insight related to all the customers based on what kind of preference they would have, and then the feeds like alpha generator will provide them the right recommendation which should go to the customers.
Well,
So
Kapil, it seems like at this rate you're going to replace the fund managers altogether. Is that the target here?
that's not the target, but our whole goal is to, because now with AI we can now give a better coverage, because maybe our advisors are currently covering 250 300 stocks. With AI coming into place, now we will give a full coverage on all 3000 stocks, because that's what the machines will really do.
Okay, Atish, let's talk about CRED, one of the fintechs here. One of the newer players in the system. You're not, 6 years old now. Start by telling us how you're using AI to ensure that there is engagement and there's loyalty in the select customers that you service. And he's talking 750 plus CIBIL scores. How you're evaluating them as well.
So one of the key things that we need to understand is how what is important to the user. We want to pitch the right things at the right time, and understanding all those things from what type of transactions users are doing, what type of products the user want, and at what right time that is to give the user. If you look at from the lens of, let's say, a whole BFSI sector, one of the key things are lending. How do you understand, at what time what interest rate you should give to the user, at what time there's a chance of user defaulting, and how do you sort of minimize a lot of those things? Obviously, customer support being the key aspects of GenAI, where you'd ideally want to understand, what are the customer problems, at what time, even before customer getting a understanding, a lot of time, let's say transaction fails, you get a notification 3 days later. How do you identify that preemptively, and then also notify the customer, understand his problem, and let him know that there's an issue going on and you don't have to worry about it. So there are a lot of customer-centric changes that are ongoing right now.
Okay, Kaustubh, since you again have an overview of the industry, let me ask you about the kind of adoption, the best use cases of AI you've seen, and where are the areas of improvement where you think the industry is lagging behind in adoption and could do better?
Sure, thanks. When it comes to the BFSI sector, right, typically there are two types of use cases that we have seen. One is for the efficiency, productivity improvement, and the second one is the game-changing AI, as we call it as. And we were talking about the combination of the traditional predictive AI plus the generative AI. Think about it like a left brain that is typically used for any decisioning, and the right brain that is used for the creativity, right? So the traditional AI is more like a left brain, and the generative AI is more for the creativity, which is about the right brain. Now, with the advancement of the agentic AI, right, pretty much the decisioning is something that AI is able to do. Few use cases I will talk about basis our experience and what we are also in active conversations in the market. If you look at say a banking industry for that matter, the typical financial reconciliations, whether you are reconciling against the transactions to the accounts and the general ledger and so on, is a classic use case for generative AI.
Repetitive tasks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at the asset management, wealth management companies, and it's a classic debate between the data providers and the asset managers in terms of the availability and accuracy of the data. But when it comes to the green investment, the asset managers can look at generative AI to really bring in the required data and then take the required decisions, right? So that's number two. Number three, the capital market industries and the exchanges typically are looking at using data for, say, mimicking the exchange data. And imagine mimicking exchange data is extremely domain intensive activity. That is something generative AI can do. And all of this is underpinned with a very simple interface that we were kind of talking about on generative AI, which is plain English. So erstwhile tech teams were learning machines language, and now machines are learning our language. And I will say English, because of generative AI, is probably the hottest language in the world right now.
All right, yes, English is the hottest language in the world. You really don't need to know all those complicated codes anymore. Like I said, all of us think we're experts now thanks to ChatGPT, but I know we're far from. But, let me, Gurbans, come back to you on, we've discussed cybersecurity extensively in the previous panel, but how are you using some of these tools that are available to you today, thanks to AI, thanks to some of the new technologies for fraud detection? Tell us about some of the interesting work that's come up there.
So I don't know if it's interesting, but we use a lot of traditional technology for fraud. We honestly, in Fiserv, we are not yet using GenAI for fraud detection. We still don't have too much faith on GenAI because it's too right-brained yet. We would like it to be more left-brained. We want it to be more deterministic before we can do frauds. But some of the newer technologies that have come in terms of cleaning up the data. So we sit on a lot of isolated data. So when you kind of bring all that data together, a single entity can be represented in many different forms across issuers and acquirers and banks and cards and so on. And so therefore, to clean up the data and have a single unique identifier for entities, so like the keying and the linking of the data, and cleaning that up and using then graph databases and graph algorithms to figure out, I did a transaction with Ritu did it with someone else, and to be able to trace those. So those graph algorithms, they have been helping us to kind of do fraud detection. And bulk of fraud detection that happens is rule-based. It's no AI, it's no Gen AI, it's pure rule-based transactions at the back end because we want the latency to be very, very small. We want the real-time decisions to be taken, and we want to be very sure, and we want to have it explainable in terms of why those decisions have been taken. So we are still on a very traditional path there.
Well, Mayank, one of the other big benefits of using newer technology that we keep hearing from people is the cost efficiency. Could you give us some examples as to what kind of improvements you've seen there thanks to the use of technology? Real examples, real numbers.
Yeah, so we essentially automate operations of our internal processes, hoping to improve TATs. That's how we compete. And I think using AI in general and software automation, we've been able to reduce roughly 40% of the effort that is being put in and essentially speed up the process 40%. So during our peaks, we don't actually need that many people looking at the same number of transactions, and they're just there to take decisions. And I think those are the right now low-hanging fruits, these kind of efficiencies. The way that is implemented is, hey, if a human is doing an operation, technology through GenAI, through typical AI, now exists to automate that operation. So repetitive steps, as you just said, can be automated away. The final decision is what we are letting the human take. And these are real numbers that are implemented, running live in production. There's a lot of judgment that people use that is still very hard to automate. So you still need a checker on AI. And that's the model that we use to implement.
Well, Atish, Mayank might still have a human at the end to ensure that there is no bias, that there is a checker at the end, so to speak, like he said. But when talking about the use of AI, there's always a concern about ethical use, about biasness. How are you solving for that as a technology-first company?
I think a removal of bias and fairness is something that will become core as you become more technologically advanced. Specifically because right now these models are become black box. Earlier what used to happen was you used to have very basic rules and regulations which used to drive decisions. Now with these coming black box model, there's not a lot of explainability that is going on. So there are a few things that as a company, one should ensure to be in place. One is definitely a lot of PII masking. I would say that no specific biasness creeps into the model when you are training those foundational model for your company. And not just that, along with that, you need to ensure that there's no leakages in terms of PII. When let's say privacy concerns should not come. Let's say you have a chatbot on your site, and it should not ideally leak your customer information to another customer. A lot of cases have happened similar to this, where prompt injection sort of things has happened. So creating those guardrails into the place, having those validation layers before you sort of expose these things into the end customer facing products. Those are the key things one needs to build in the products before sort of releasing to the customer. So and there are a lot of other sort of guardrails models that are live right now, which helps you not just prevent these type of things, but also gives you signals on, let's say, if there are some other type of exposures that are happening into the company. So a lot of these validations layers is something you need to build into your platforms to avoid all these leakages. And I think these are something which will become more fundamental as we move forward, as we grow more using these models as a service rather than every company having the capacity to build all these models themselves. So we'll get all these central infrastructures which will enable everyone to adopt them directly, which is not present right now, I would say.
So this is still a journey, right? And as you get to your destination, do you also still have human checkers at the end? Do you still have to resort to that?
Yeah, depending on use case, I think optimization is where GenAI and normal AI has helped us. You basically automate a lot of process which does not actually need human, like he's mentioning let's say you have an image, you can directly just see if there are dents, if there are any issues, if there are any concerns with that, and then just let the human know, okay, these are the final insights that I've identified, just do a yes or no after that. So optimization in the process is something where GenAI is definitely helping solve a lot of scalability issues. So instead of one customer, a person can look at, let's say, 10 customers, 20 customers.
Well, the other area where technology has been a big boon, and Kapil, if you could come in on that, financial inclusion. Let's say for you, as you're looking to solve in your industry, the new to credit customers, the people who've never traded before. I know we've seen this wave of retail investors coming into the market, but the underserved segments, the ones that are just very new to the market, how is technology enabling you to bridge the gap to solve for that segment of the population?
Yeah, all right. So for new customers, for all the Gen Z users that are coming, on our platforms.
Gen Z and even those that are in far-flung areas, they may not be young, they may be old.
So maybe those segments who are not used to trading, and a lot of new investors coming in. So for us, I mean, we are phygital right now. So we are reaching out to them both physically and digitally. So that's what is, Motilal Oswal's, core plan to go with. We want to go physical. We don't want to go purely digital. We don't want to go purely physical. So for customers, let's say, and we have a presence in, across Pan India, we have almost a branch or something, presence on almost every town or every city. So remote customers also we are reaching out, physically. And for all those customers where we can reach out digitally, there we are playing a big role through AI, because we are trying to understand what is the need of the customer, what kind of product we should pitch in for that customer. We are not directly, trying to pitch him, equities or derivatives. Wherever we feel like this customer is a proper fit for a conservative product, like, your fixed income product, that also we have in our offerings, or a mutual fund. So we are trying to pitch the right product. So the right product fit is what we are trying to address, for the new customers who are coming in, onboarding for the first time. And a lot of educational content that we are creating for customers, so we have a platform called Edumo, which we have on our apps, on our websites, for new customers, just to learn, how to trade in, these markets, or how to invest. So we are trying to do a lot of education through these tech, and also, giving the right advice by the right product which fits the right customer.
All right, I've been told we're running out of time. So Kaustubh, finally, thoughts from you. We've heard from the panelists about how they're using technology to solve for the problems of today. What do you expect will be, or what do you hope will be some of the biggest changes that come about, say, in the next 5 to 10 years, that are really going to change the game for the BFSI industry, that you're most excited about?
I will say, from a technology standpoint in the BFSI world, the whole concept of agentic AI that is here is going to stay. Number two, we strongly believe that the domain-centric language models are here to stay. We also believe that the small language models are here to stay, right? And if you look at the broader LLMs which are trained on the world data, we have taken an approach where in the BFSI world we are training the models by adjusting the weights and making them smaller. But for your own data, the customer's data, which essentially means that it is extremely contextualized to your business, and that's one of the art of possible that we are looking forward to, really.
Well, on that note, and we wish you all the very best, all of you here that are solving for the problems of tomorrow for a sector as critical as finance. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts today. And I hope the audience had a lot to take away. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
CNBC-TV18 and NuSummit present the BFSI 2025 Vision Summit.